Bethany, by Damien. For my daughter, if she would just stop playing on her phone. This story is a work of fiction. All characters and events portrayed in this book are fictional, and any resemblance to anyone living or dead is purely coincidental. Chapter 1. Grace was getting married today. All my siblings were here, only a couple of my nephews were missing. My name is Bethany, and I'm the 8th child, the 5th daughter of Michael and Louise Thorne. I live on a farm with my parents, along with my brother, Toby, and sister Grace. That was until this morning. I stood with my mother and oldest sister, Ashley, her husband, Jonathan, and their 3 younger boys in the front pew of the church. Matthew and Josephine, with their twin girls in the pew behind us. Next to them, Rachel and Herbert, and their 3 boys. Toby was dozing in the pew. Samuel stood next to Laura and Greg, who had traveled to the wedding from Davenport with their 3 children. Andrew Stevens, Grace's soon-to-be husband, stood with Pastor Moore at the front of the church. The organ played. We all turned to the rear of the church. Even Toby was now standing. Father walked Grace down the aisle. I don't think that Grace wanted to be here. Father placed Grace's hand in Andrew's, kissed Grace's cheek, before he joined us and held Mother's hand. Pastor Moore started the service, speaking of love, honor, and devotion. It wasn't that at all. Grace needed to be married before next week, before her 15th birthday. Father had done a lot of negotiating for her to marry Andrew Stevens. Grace and Andrew exchanged rings. The kiss was quick, done because they were told to, not because they wanted to. Grace had only known Andrew for a few months. Pastor Moore had married them. The choir sang as Grace and Andrew signed the certificates before they returned and knelt in front of the altar. Then Pastor Moore started his eulogy from the pulpit. We all stood, and I stared at the bride and groom. Grace was dressed in white, her slim figure compared to Andrew's taller frame, dressed in a white shirt and dark pants. He was about 10 years older and a good foot taller. Andrew's father was the local sheriff. Sheriff Stevens stood dressed in his uniform with his wife in the front pew on the other side of the aisle. Compared to our side, they were alone. The church bells finally rang, and we all followed the bride and groom out to the village green. It was a beautiful day. The flowers in the village garden next to the church were magnificent. Roses were in full bloom. Their scent should have been in the air, except for the smoke from the spits of meat cooking above the fire pits. Seats and tables were set out. Younger children ran around and climbed the trees. Most of the town was here for the free feed. Andrew and Grace disappeared into the bedding chamber. I spent that time working behind the table with Mother, Rachel, and Laura, serving food to the locals. There was a roar from the crowd outside the bedding chamber as Andrew and Grace reappeared. Grace had tears in her eyes. Her face was red, and her hair needed to be redone. Andrew had a big grin covering his face. He adjusted his belt, and the crowd cheered again. An hour later, I was finally able to get away from the serving tables, only to be stopped by a smelly old man. Father was at my side a moment later. "Great wedding?" called the smelly old man in patchy clothing with a long, scruffy beard. "It wasn't bad," replied Father. "You still got one to give away. Look no further." "I don't think that we've been introduced. I'm Roger Underwood, and my Wilbur is available." He gestured at the skinny boy next to him. "Don't have much of a dowry for Bethany. Gave away most of it for Grace's marriage," stated Father. "Finding a husband for Bethany?" "Not yet. She's only just 13. Father placed an arm over my shoulders. "Still of marrying age, less than 2 years before she has no choice in whom she marries," informed Roger Underwood. "Wilbur will make her a good husband." He pointed again to the skinny boy next to him. His running nose had been broken and not aligned correctly. A moment later, he slurped up the running snot and spat it over my shoes. When he smiled, I noticed he was missing his front teeth. He's a good boy. Had a couple of fights with the Gators, only missing 2 fingers on his left hand. He's still got what it takes to be a man. He had a few issues with, he's learnt. Now, what do you say? "Wilbur is a fine boy," replied Father. "Bethany still has almost 2 years before she needs to be married. I don't want to lose her too quickly. Who will do her chores?" "Wilbur could move in," offered Roger Underwood. "No," replied Father quickly. Just getting used.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?